Here we go. Well, hello everybody out in Facebook land. I'm Saul Ravencraft. You know Madam Zee.
Hello everyone, Witchy hello.
Here we are on our first live broadcast together.
I know, can you believe it? I'm gonna
It's
make sure
weird.
we're live.
It's weird.
I'm gonna
but
share
it's
it out.
good.
Let's see what we got.
So this is our first broadcast. We gave it a name, but I've forgotten what we're calling ourselves.
Cauldron Conversations.
Cauldron Conversations.
Cauldron
That's good. That's our name for now. If you have another suggestion for a name, don't be shy. We're open to suggestions here. I'm going to try and keep an eye on any chat that we have going on here. But we do have a topic. I guess I should point out there it is, the witchy weekend that we have coming up, our paranormal weekend. It's going to be in September. If you go to paranormalseance.com, you'll be able to see what's going on there. We'll certainly be talking about that in the upcoming Tuesdays as we get closer to it. But there's so much going on with that, and I can't wait to share the details as we get through our next couple little things. You and I are going to go tour Bartlett tomorrow. And spend some time in some of these locations, and we'll be able to share more very, very soon. But check out paranormalseance.com. You'll be able to see what we know so far and look for updates. Or just jump all in. There's no reason not to.
Yeah. So we've got 4 people watching. So type in the comments where you are from and where you're watching from. And if we're taking live questions, today we're going to be talking about taking the mystery out of the word occult and what that is. So this is really interactive. We're going to answer any questions that you have about the occult, paranormal, anything like that that's coming up for you. So if you want us to answer your questions live, please say hello to us in the comments. Let us know where you are watching us from, and drop any comments in there or any questions that you have about the occult, about being a pagan, being a witch, doing tarot, any divination. And we said hello to everyone. Just make sure the comments are working. And so we're going to be here for about 30 minutes asking some interesting questions, answering questions that you have, talking about the paranormal weekend that's coming up September 24th through the 26th. And this is the very first in a series of Cauldron and Conversations. So, all right, Saul, what do you want to talk about? What's on the agenda for today?
Well, you and I have recently been dealing with people's idea of the word occult.
Correct.
I've run into that. My label that I like to put out there is the executive occultist. I'm not one of those weirdo occultists. I'm an executive occultist, flying first class, raising the bar, right? And I find that even though I'm having some fun with that, that very word occultist hits people, and it's something that they've been taught to fear. And the word is really not a bad word. The word occult simply means hidden. Occult knowledge is secret knowledge, hidden knowledge. If you go back into esoteric practices going, back a couple of thousand years, there was information, there was knowledge that was not for everybody. It was for the initiated. It was for the elders. That was occult knowledge. If you are someone who is looking for patterns, for secret information in the Bible, you are looking at occult knowledge. There was a time when science was not as open as it is today, and those secrets were more closely held by the practitioners of science. That was occult knowledge. It is secret knowledge. It is hidden knowledge. It is not necessarily knowledge that is unfindable or unknowable, but it is knowledge that you may have to do some work for. You may have to do some digging for. It's the opposite of common knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Exactly.
And so a lot of people that are afraid of that word make assumptions about what's going on by someone who's interested in the occult.
Right.
Okay, it is true. A lot of us that are interested in the occult are interested in the ghostly things, weird things, the strange tales and stories and artifacts. That's certainly the kind of thing that I dig for. But I don't know. I think a lot of curious people fall into that. You're certainly interested in the paranormal and the ghostly and the weird.
Oh yeah, I've been doing that. I don't know, ever since I was a kid. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time. And the occult back in our day, it was not available on the internet. This is pre-internet. This is when we had to go down to the basements of, the library and try to find these occult subjects, right?
Right.
These paranormal subjects. I remember when I was a kid, when I first started really diving into it, I think it was, what was it? I think it was Time Life had a big series. It was a big blue book on like the paranormal or the unexplained or something like that. And
I've got a few of those volumes.
Yeah, all the volumes.
I don't have the whole set. I don't have the whole set, but I've picked up a few of the old volumes because I remember those being advertised. And this is TV. I don't know about your world, but when I saw these ads, there were only like 4 or 5 channels coming in over the air, and the announcer would come on, and you'd see these images, and they'd talk about the unknown and ghosts and UFOs and strange places, and you could buy the volume, you'd pay, and they'd send you a volume every month, and you get to collect the whole set. Of course, now you can probably find the whole set at half-price books with very little trouble. But no, and when I was a kid, I found all of this stuff pretty early on. The 100 section of the library is where all this kind of stuff was. Yep. And there was not so much in the witchy areas there, but there was certainly things about ghosts and UFOs and that sort of thing. I read the book Chariot of the Gods when I was in the 5th grade. So that gives you an idea of what I was like. I'm much better now.
It's interesting though when you dive into the occult what people think it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
People think the word occult is. They think it's some kind of like devil worshiping, where you sacrifice, your blood and our kid, and you do all this crazy rituals to bring in like Satan and demons and portals of hell, and it's not that at all.
That sounds like a lot of work.
I know, doesn't it? Yeah, speaking of that, it's been a long time since I ever done a what I call a high ritual, high magic.
Sure.
Because high magic is a lot of work.
It is. But you get to wear the clothes and recite the incantations, and everybody has good hair.
Exactly.
Well, maybe not.
And they know their lines, and they know where they're supposed to stand, and they know their positions. And
it's very theatrical magic, and it's a lot of fun. But it is a lot of work. It's pageantry.
It is.
Pageantry of magic.
Aleister Crowley, we have to, talk about.
Right, right. But When we start talking about occult and the ideas of the occult, I think my favorite author for that is Charles Forte. Are you familiar with that name?
Forte?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You may have heard the word Fortean.
Mm-hmm.
And Fortean deals with the weird stuff. And Charles Forte, there's a book biography I read about him where they called him the father of the paranormal. Because he in the early 1900s, 1910 to 1919 at some point, started writing these books. And one of them was called The Book of the Damned. And The Damned was not about lost souls or anything about that. It was about information that you weren't supposed to talk about. And he told stories because he was a journalist, and he collected all these strange stories and strange ideas of things that were going on. Rains of fish, red rains, black rains, weird tales that were going on. And it was the sort of thing that people had these stories and there were witnesses, but the scientific community did not really seem to have much interest in these things. And they would put out some sort of an explanation about it, but it wasn't necessarily proven or anything. It was just, it's probably this. And he became dissatisfied with that kind of attitude. And so he started writing these books where he would capture all of these bizarre stories and put them out there and say, this is what's going on out there. This is what people are talking about. What could this possibly mean? And you could say it was the precursor to the Weekly World News. Man, I miss the Weekly World News. I miss that so much. But it was just the beginning of paying attention to these weird ideas. And the books are in the public domain now, so if you want to dig those up, they're great reads.
And going down the rabbit hole of actually, self-studying and actually looking at the history of where things come from and questioning everything is, got me in trouble a lot. When I was a kid, I never took the answers for what they were. I was always questioning, always digging deeper. And really the occult back in the day, in order for you to be privy to things that were hidden, then, and that is hidden societies also, like the skull and crossbones and, those hidden societies. All it is really just questioning and dedicating yourself to the unknown subjects.
Right.
And to peel the veil back on things that aren't readily available. So it's not
interesting
big,
things
huge,
that were
scary thing. It's just a lot of digging and research and questioning. And where I started off with studying the occult when I was a kid is not where I am now, because every little thing send you down this, complete new rabbit hole. So you're on this entire journey of studying the occult for a lifetime. And it's really interesting, the stuff that you have been told that is either has pagan roots or has some kind of hermetic roots, or it come from a different culture. So that's why when you do study occult, or you do paranormal investigation, or you do any kind of spiritual communication, you kind of have to be well-rounded in the study of the occult, because it comes through for sure.
Right.
So we want to say hello to Elizabeth. She's joining us live. Do you have any questions, Elizabeth, about paranormal or the occult? What is everybody's, what do you think, Saul, is everybody's biggest fear about the word occult?
Well, I think what has happened is stories have used the word occult to represent the big bad. So when you have someone who is dabbling in the occult, they're the one that gets into that forbidden knowledge, and they open the thing that was meant to stay hidden. A lot of times when stories deal with the occult, they're dealing with that upstart, that overly curious person that digs into something that was forbidden for good reason. That was hidden and locked away because it was too dangerous. And you fool, you have opened it up, you have released the demons, you have released the monsters, you have called upon the forces that were too big, too evil. And now someone has got to pay.
Well, don't you think with that though, Saul, the hidden meaning of that would be of a cult kind of thing where they don't want you to know is like knowledge is power. So
right.
If you seek the truth and you find out the truth and you find out the knowledge, then that is the actual evil, right? Because you don't conform anymore. You're questioning.
Right.
So that's another way of looking at the occult.
Well, there are many situations where knowledge was forbidden by the powers that be. Galileo ran into some trouble because he had some ideas that were against what the prevailing knowledge was, and that seemed like it was going to undermine people's authority, and it became dangerous, and he became persecuted, prosecuted, and he had to shut that stuff down. Later on, they decided that maybe his information was correct, and I think ultimately he was pardoned for being such an upstart, and they decided that yeah, what he was doing was okay.
Yeah, I mean, it comes, goes all the way back to Adam and Eve and the tree of knowledge, and the cult start, that was in there with the serpent and the apple, and it's a whole other theory about what the apple, was it really an apple, was it a pomegranate, the whole story behind that. Pomegranate are the seeds of knowledge. So it's it really starts with you questioning the actual word occult. Hey Joe, thanks for joining us live. And what you want to learn, and don't be afraid of what mainstream society has told you occultism or the study of the occult is, because it's not. Hey Joe. So if you have any questions about the occult or what it is, or any kind of discussion that you're interested in on, just drop your comments below. We're talking about the occult, and it's not as scary as you think it is. So Saul Ravencraft and Madam Z, hello everyone. Today we are going to be talking about just taking the scariness out of the word occult and what occultism is. Both of us are I wouldn't even say supreme, but we're experts in occultism. So we love talking about this weird, macabre, going down the rabbit hole, what if, right, scenarios. And the hidden knowledge that was only available to people of certain standards in certain societies. And that's another thing that we probably need to talk about a little bit about that, Saul. Do you think that occultism is very much associated with class back in the day before internet? Now we're talking before internet, because now occult is very readily available.
I think you have to look a little bit at the history of what we think of as science today. There's a quote from Hamlet. There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, that are dreamt of in your philosophy. And Hamlet is specifically talking about natural philosophy, which was the term used at the time to describe what we today call science. Because there, in that day, philosophy, like Plato and that sort of thing, magic, connections with the universe, and what we think of today as scientific knowledge were all combined together. They were not divided up the way that we do today.
Right.
And it was not unusual for someone in that age to have interest in natural philosophy and the way things work, and to also be interested in these other more esoteric kinds of things. For example, Sir Isaac Newton, who I think we can generally agree is pretty sciencey-wiancy. He was also an alchemist.
Correct.
And genuinely interested in what alchemy was. Now, the study of alchemy is not the way that we talk about it today. It was not about trying to turn baser metals into gold. That was metaphorical. But it was discovering and understanding the nature of things. It turned into chemistry through one route. But it was also about the perfection of the soul, the perfection of one's practice. And it's a lot deeper than we are commonly led to believe today. And many scientists of that age had a curiosity and an interest. A little while back, I listened to a podcast about Dr. John Dee. And John Dee was a fascinating guy. He was a cartographer, a mathematician. He was involved in all kinds of very scientific things. He was a military strategist. He was an advisor to Queen Elizabeth. And he was also the one that brought us the idea of Enochian magic. And it was funny to hear on some of these podcasts, to hear people talk about John Dee and how fascinating it was, and all the things he was involved in, and all of the things that he contributed to in culture and science. And then they had to be very apologetic about, he also kind of believed in magic, which was weird. We don't understand that, but don't worry about that. He was cool otherwise. And that was just not so weird. It was not vilified at that time the way that it is today. Curiosity was curiosity, and a lot of the people that were interested in what we think of as science today was interested in all those things. And now we're supposed to compartmentalize that. And there's a lot of shaming that goes on with all of this. And for me, be curious about what you're curious about. Dig into what you want to dig into. Some of what you find is going to be silly, apocryphal, untrue, fairy tales. But some of them are going to be things that make you go,
Exactly. That's the whole thing, is where you started at is not where you're going to end up at. And then you'll start to question, and we're going to, and Joe had a comment too, but you're going to start to question everything that was taught to you, that was said to you, that you're like, this is not true. So it's a whole thing about self-discovery, that you're on this journey. And, like I said, you'll start to question everything. I'm talking everything. And I know when I started, we talked about, it was only for the elite, or it was only for the people who had access to it. I had to be initiated. Like, I had to study a year and a day. I had to be first degree initiate, second degree initiate, third degree initiate, and so on. I just couldn't read a book or go to TikTok and then just, be a self-proclaimed high degree priestess. So it was a kind of occultism, whereas you had to go through the initiation process, and you had to swear an oath on, everything that is holy, or what we used to call everything that is unholy, that we would not share our secrets, that we would not share our rituals, our grimoires and book of shadows, are ours, and it is not to be shared. And there's still some recipes, there's still some stuff a lot of rituals that I still cannot share with my academy, my women and my folks in my academy, because I have an online witches academy, because that is just privy to me and my coven. So it just goes with that. And as you know, when you become initiated, more and more, you have more and more access to these hidden things, these hidden knowledges, but you have to be initiated. In my day, you had to prove yourself. And
right.
Then when you prove yourself and then you, what I call level up or rank up, then your high priestess would give you a little bit more knowledge. Okay. So Joe said, unfortunately for folks, a lot of them are afraid of what in the end known, so they tend to scare the hell out of themselves. Yeah. And you know, people tend to be believe in what they see in the media, believe in what they see, you know, in horror films and, you know, the cult stories and stuff, but it's not that at all. It's not that at all. So it's not as scary as you think it is. Really, I didn't have any scary situations at all when I started studying the occult. It started for me, started putting all these different puzzle pieces starting to come together. So all these little scattered thoughts or where it came from, or, you know, it's like all these little different universes, all these little people, I mean, pieces were just all over the place. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, all these pieces are starting to fit and starting to make a little bit of more sense. And so it's really on a journey of self-discovery, but it's also a journey of it's not being as scary as you think it is.
Right. And it's mostly about facing the unknown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you are willing to connect with the unknown, to look it in the face, to learn and to understand it, you'll find that really there is very little to be feared. Even when you're dealing with something that is aggressive, something that is angry or frightened, or someone who is aggressive or angry or frightened, it is really about facing that unknown. And occult is simply talking about that vast web of what is unknown, what is misunderstood, and being willing to dig into it and see it for what it is, as opposed to just going, I'm not allowed to think about that, I'm not allowed to know about that, la 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 la. And that attitude just gets in your way.
Yes, and if you have any mentor or any, you know, teacher who teaches this and who is, you know, worth their, you know, weight in salt, then they want you to question them. They want you to open up your mind. They want you to go down that rabbit hole. They want to have these what if conversations. They want to have this intellectual kind of dialogue between each other. They want you to explore. They want you to question everything, and they want you to study. So it's, you know, if you find a good teacher or a mentor, they will encourage you to, you know, go down that rabbit hole, ask that question, have that conversation, and they won't shut you down.
Right.
Yeah, it's important that you find someone who is not is not going to oppress you and really just pushes you to open up your occult studies, for sure.
Right.
And that's what me and Saul do. We love talking about this stuff.
Well, ignorance breeds fear.
Correct.
And fear prevents you from doing what you're capable of.
Mm-hmm.
So don't be afraid of the word. Don't be afraid of the information. Learn about it and then decide.
Yeah. So where do you think would be a good place for people to start at on their occult journey?
Well, I mentioned Charles Forte. It's old stuff, but it's wonderful stuff. And I think it's a great way to look. Because right now when you dig into things, YouTube videos and all that, there's a lot of stuff that has agendas going on. And I feel like Forte did not really have an agenda. He was just trying to bring this thinking out in the open and get people to consider what was going on there, to consider that there was more stuff than what they had been told, and to get them to wonder about it. Yeah. If not to come up with an answer, at least come up with a question. And I would say that if you've never read that stuff, go dig into it. It's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would recommend starting off with Aleister Crowley and starting off with the older occultists and getting to know them. Now, Aleister Crowley is a little bit out there. You have to separate the art from the artist, right? He wasn't a very nice, he was kind of a shitty person.
Well, Crowley was a troll.
He was.
Right? He liked to bait people. He did not have a lot of patience for people that were not willing to do the work, not willing to think. So some of what he does is sarcasm. Some of what he does are jokes. Right. So you have to read in between the lines. But yeah, Crowley is interesting stuff. Hans Holzer is another author who wrote a lot on different esoteric topics, ghosts, demons, witches. All of his books are this thick. Mm-hmm. But they are easily available. He passed away, good 10 years ago or more. But he had an extensive career looking at this. And, I'd say even go back and dig up some of the old shows like Believe It or Not and Unsolved Mysteries, where they had fun with these ideas, where they weren't trying to be quite so serious about it. And you could enjoy a story about Bigfoot next to a man who eats glass.
Yeah, exactly. Or Bigfoot or Sasquatch or Loch Ness Monster. And another thing that you want to look at is where your history comes from, and start with the occult around your history. For example, if you're European, you're English or Scottish, maybe you want to look at the Celtic kind of practices or occult practices that are surrounded in that area where your ancestors came from, or so that way you connect with them. Another way that I would I recommend you guys starting with is, because it's so versatile and it is so out there and available, is tarot. And not everybody, I'd hate to say not everybody's afraid of tarot, but I've ran into some people who are definitely afraid of tarot because they're still like, oh, that's of the devil. We don't do that here. You can open the portal. And you're like, mm-mm. So start with tarot, but because that's really easy to get your hands on. It's simple, but there's so much symbolism and occultism in tarot that will start for you to get to thinking about what occultism is.
And it's funny that you mentioned the tarot like that. Whenever I'm doing an event where I may be doing readings, but it's not specific to that. If it's a metaphysical fair or something like that, it's different. But if I'm in a more mundane event, then I will always have playing cards with me in addition to my tarot cards, because you can read playing cards just as well as you can tarot cards. And it's funny, people that look at my tarot cards and go, oh, get those devil symbols away from me, will have no problem with doing simple cartomancy with a deck of playing cards, even though it is the same thing.
Because and again, when you start to open your mind up and study what the devil card really means, it's not scary at all. You have to decipher what these symbols are, what these hidden meanings are, and you just can't go on it with face value. You have to dig deeper. You have to pull the veil back. You have to look at the hidden meanings of what is happening in those tarot cards in occult study, because it's not anything scary.
No, No. In fact, when you dig into a lot of occult ideas and you actually go below the surface, many of them are kind of laughable.
Yeah.
There's a lot of weird ideas that didn't go anywhere, and that's all part of the journey, is to learn to discern, to learn what is useful information to you, what has connections, and what is just someone's interesting idea that they may have made up.
And I know, to just fluffy bunny the tarot, right? A lot of times, instead of the death card, they put like a butterfly on there, which is like about rebirth, right? So I'm like, okay, you can whitewash it, whatever you want to do, that's fine. But I want you guys to dig deeper into the hidden meanings of things that look a little bit scary to you, because I guarantee you, once you start to dive into it and really study it and really pull back that veil of what society says it is or what you think it is, then you really grasp what occultism really is. It's not all about butterflies and rainbows, right?
It's interesting to hit a point in your understanding where that death card gets turned over and you go, oh, thank goodness.
Exactly. You're like, yes, the death card,
yes.
I'm ready for it.
Yes, I am so ready for change.
Exactly.
Well, I suppose that wraps it up for today's Cauldron Conversation. I am glad for the folks that joined us and the folks that are going to watch this. And we are looking to do this next Tuesday, yes?
We're going to do a whole series on it. So if you want us to have a specific topic, or you're interested in anything that you want us to dive into, have a conversation with, please let us know. Drop it in the comments or send us a message. Joe said, no, it can be messy. I prefer duality. Yes, exactly.
And don't forget to check out paranormalseance.com to see what's going on with the events. We're getting used to the pointing. To see what's going on with our current events and upcoming events. Everything that Madam Z and I are doing together will be there and be here on Facebook. So keep an eye out for all of that coming up. And thank you all for joining us.
All right. And we'll see you on the other side. Bye.